Have you ever opened your eyes in the morning and already felt the weight of the day pressing down on you? No noise, no rush yet, but your mind is already sprinting, chasing thoughts you haven't invited. Emails you haven't read. Conversations you're dreading. Deadlines looming like shadows before the sun even rises. You haven't even stood up, and somehow, you're already tired. This is how most of the world wakes up, not into silence, but into noise. Not into peace, but into combat. The battle doesn't begin when you leave your house. It begins the moment you become conscious. But the Stoics, they taught us a different way. A stronger way. A morning ritual not of rushing, but of reclaiming. Not of running from life, but of turning toward it, ready, grounded, unshaken. Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome, ruler of the known world, wrote to himself, not to the Senate, not to his generals, not to his people, but to his own soul. And what did he tell himself in the early hours of the day? Not about glory. Not about power. He reminded himself, today I will meet with interference, ingratitude, insolence, disloyalty, ill will, and selfishness, all of them due to the offender's ignorance of what is good or evil. This was his morning greeting. Not fear. Not stress. A calm, lucid acceptance of reality. He didn't expect life to be kind. He expected it to be life. And that simple act, of remembering what the world is, and who he was, gave him power. That's the first step of the Stoic morning ritual, clarity before chaos. To remind yourself, you are not owed ease. You are not promised peace. But you are in control of how you meet the day. And that's the part we forget, isn't it? We let the world decide how we begin. We reach for our phones. We let headlines set our mood. Notifications own our nervous system. But a Stoic begins with a shield, not of steel, but of intention. So, how do you do it? You start before the world wakes. Before its noise invades you. You sit, or you stand, or you stay lying down, it doesn't matter. But you make space for silence. 5 minutes. 10. You breathe. You think. You prepare. Not in the way of a soldier gathering weapons, but in the way of a gardener tending to soil. Because your mind is ground. What you plant in it first, that will grow. And so you plant strength. You remember, everything today could fall apart. You could be insulted. Misunderstood. Delayed. Ignored. But none of that can harm your soul. Unless you let it. And you won't. That is the second movement of the Stoic morning, the rehearsal of adversity. Seneca called it premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils. But it's not a dark practice. It's light. Because once you see that nothing truly bad can happen to a good soul, you walk lighter. Freer. Ready. You say to yourself, I may lose today. I may fail. But I will not lose myself. That is mine to keep. You rehearse difficulty so it does not break you when it arrives. You meet it first on your terms, in your mind, in your stillness, so it cannot surprise you in the world. And then, you return to the breath. In. Out. Not chasing anything. Not rushing toward anything. Just being present. A Stoic morning does not hurry. It has nothing to chase. It has only one task, to align yourself with nature, with reason, with the soul you were born to protect. Even Marcus, in the middle of wars, betrayals, illness, he took this time. Because he understood something we forget in the chase for productivity: a calm mind is more powerful than a busy one. A clear mind sees more than an anxious one. And your mind is not your enemy. Unless you let it run untamed. That is the third piece of the ritual, discipline of the mind. Not suppression. Not pretending you don't feel what you feel. But observing. Naming. And letting go. I see you, fear. You are not me. I feel doubt. But I do not obey it. This is how you take back your day, not with force, but with presence. Not with control over the world, but with command over your own soul. Now, the world is beginning to move. You hear it outside, the sound of cars, of footsteps, of responsibilities calling your name. But you're not rushing toward it. You are stepping into it slowly, like a man stepping into cold water, aware, awake, unafraid. Because the Stoic doesn't leap into the day without direction. He walks with aim. He acts by principle, not impulse. He knows that without a plan, the world will give him one. And the world's plan is noise. That's why the next step in this ritual is not to check your messages. Not to scroll, or react, or be pulled. The next step is to choose your first deliberate action. Maybe it's writing. Maybe it's stretching. Maybe it's stepping outside to feel the cold air and reminding yourself, I am alive, I am here, I am capable. But whatever it is, you choose it. Because the first action of your day sets the tone for all the others. Seneca warned us, we suffer more in imagination than in reality. And it's true. How many times have you ruined a morning with thoughts of an afternoon that never came? How many times have you been anxious about a conversation that never happened, a problem that never arrived? The Stoic morning clears this fog. It teaches you to act on what is, not what might be. And what is, right now, is this breath. This room. This moment. That is all. And in that, there is peace. The Stoics knew that presence isn't a luxury. It's a discipline. You train it, like a muscle. And each morning is your training ground. So ask yourself now, before the day swallows you whole, what is within my control? What is not? And then, let go of the second. Cling to the first. This is not avoidance. This is preparation. Because when you stop trying to control what you cannot, you free up energy for what you can. And that is where strength lives. Your job is not to control outcomes. It's to control your effort. Your honesty. Your character. Epictetus put it plainly, you may not control the situation, but you control what you think about it. And that single sentence is a sword against the chaos of modern life. You do not need a perfect world. You need a practiced mind. So this is the fourth step of the Stoic morning, affirm your control of self. Say it aloud, if you must, I do not control what they say. But I control what I say. I do not control what happens. But I control how I respond. And when the day tests you, because it will, you will not be surprised. You've already prepared. You've already rehearsed. You've already planted your feet. You are not waiting for the day to give you peace. You have built it yourself. And now, with this foundation in place, you move. Not with frantic energy, but with grounded purpose. You do not race the clock. You master it. You are not prey to tasks. You select them with care, like a craftsman choosing his tools. Because a Stoic does not waste the morning. He knows, how you begin the day is how you live your life. Each morning is not just a preparation, it is a reflection of the kind of person you are choosing to become. So choose wisely. Don't fill your time, fill your soul. Don't chase every demand, meet only the ones that matter. Don't be everywhere, be fully here. And if the world crashes today, if the meeting goes badly, if you get the news you didn't want, remember, none of that touches your character. Unless you let it. That is what you've practiced this morning. Not a routine. A stance. A way of being. Like a mountain in the storm, still, unmoved, quietly watching. But what about the unexpected? What about the days that don't go according to plan, the ones that seem to attack you before you've even had the chance to begin? The Stoics would tell you, that is the point. You train in the calm to be ready in the storm. You build stillness inside not for the days that go smoothly, but for the ones that don't. Marcus Aurelius didn't write in peace. He wrote on battlefields. He wrote in sickness. He wrote after betrayal. And still, he began his days reminding himself of what was to come. Not because he wanted to suffer, but because he wanted to be strong enough not to. Strength, in Stoicism, is not aggression. It's not a clenched fist. It's not loud. It's quiet. It's the man who doesn't raise his voice when he's provoked. The woman who doesn't break when things fall apart. The person who holds to their values, even when no one else is watching. And that's the next part of this morning ritual, returning to your values. Before the meetings, before the arguments, before the social media scroll, you ask yourself, who am I going to be today? Not what will I do? Not what will I achieve? But who will I be, even if I fail? Will I be patient, even when I'm delayed? Will I be honest, even when a lie is easier? Will I be kind, even when someone is cruel? These are not small questions. These are the foundation of peace. Because most of our anxiety doesn't come from the outside. It comes from betraying what we know to be true. We feel lost not because life is confusing, but because we abandon our compass in the middle of the storm. So you start the day by polishing it. By choosing what matters most, and promising yourself that you will return to that, again and again, no matter what happens. Seneca once said, "If you don't know to which port you're sailing, no wind is favorable." That's the danger of starting your day without a moral anchor. You get blown around by every emotion, every opinion, every crisis. And soon, you're not living, you're reacting. But the Stoic does not react. The Stoic responds. From intention. From character. From principle. And so, after your moment of silence, after your rehearsal of the day's adversity, after your breath and your grounding, after your first chosen action, you write, or you speak, your 3 core principles for this day. Keep it simple. Let them be true. Today, I will not complain. Today, I will not rush. Today, I will treat every interruption as part of the path. These are not empty affirmations. These are choices. And choices repeated daily, that's what becomes your nature. Too many people wake up and fall into habits they never meant to build. Habits of reactivity. Habits of distraction. Habits of avoidance. And then they wonder why they feel anxious, scattered, unfulfilled. But your morning, your sacred morning, is your chance to choose better. To direct the mind before the world does it for you. And this is the final movement in the ritual, gratitude without illusions. Not blind optimism. Not pretending everything is okay. But seeing clearly all that could be lost, and still saying thank you. Thank you for breath. Thank you for time. Thank you for the chance to live with virtue, even if nothing else goes right today. The Stoics weren't naive. They didn't ignore pain or poverty or cruelty. They simply refused to let those things define their soul. And one of their greatest tools for resistance was gratitude. Because when you begin your day from a place of thankfulness, your mind becomes hard to disturb. You become less entitled, less reactive, less fragile. You begin to see the small moments as gifts, not as entitlements. You start to look at life, even in its harshness, with a certain kind of reverence. You walk into the day not as a victim of its chaos, but as a participant in its unfolding. And when chaos comes, and it will, you don't run. You remember your breath. You remember your choice. You remember your principles. And you meet life, like a Stoic. The sun has risen. The city is fully awake. The rhythm of life has picked up its usual speed, noise, motion, demands, unexpected turns. But you're different now. Not because the world changed, but because you did. Because before anything external touched you, you chose to touch something eternal within yourself. And that changes everything. The Stoic morning isn't just a set of practices. It's a return. A return to what you are beneath all the surface layers, beneath the expectations, the roles, the titles, the pressure. It's remembering that you are not what happens to you. You are how you meet it. Every single morning, you are given that chance. A clean slate. Not to change the world, but to begin again in how you respond to it. But it takes work. Because your instincts will try to pull you back into speed, into fear, into reactivity. And that's why the ritual matters. Not because it guarantees a perfect day, but because it makes you ready for an imperfect one. The truth is, the Stoic path is not glamorous. It doesn't promise success. It doesn't chase validation. It doesn't always feel good. But it gives something far greater than comfort. It gives coherence, between what you believe and how you live. Between what you value and how you act. And that's the rarest thing in the modern world. You see it everywhere, the disconnection. People overwhelmed, not because they're weak, but because they're scattered. So many voices pulling in different directions. The voice of ambition. The voice of insecurity. The voice of comparison. The voice of guilt. The voice of regret. The voice of not enough. And that's why the morning is sacred. It's the one time you can meet yourself, before the voices take over. It's the one moment you can set the tone, not just for the day, but for the kind of life you want to live. The Stoics understood this long before alarms, before deadlines, before smartphones. They understood that if you don't claim the morning, the world will. And the world is not gentle. So you create a space. Not for productivity. But for sanity. You give yourself 10 minutes to breathe. To reflect. To remember that you are not just a machine for tasks. You are a soul in a body, navigating a world that is uncertain, complex, and often unfair. But also beautiful. And fleeting. And deeply worth showing up for, with presence. And here's something you must understand, the Stoic morning isn't about control. It's not about squeezing every second or dominating your schedule. It's about establishing an inner stillness that can withstand what comes. Because things will come. The things you didn't expect. The person who cuts you off in traffic. The email that shifts your whole plan. The conversation you wish went differently. The delay. The disappointment. The silence where you hoped for answers. But if you've practiced the Stoic morning, none of that defines your state. Because you've already anchored yourself in what matters. Not comfort. Not speed. But virtue. And what is virtue? Courage, when it would be easier to retreat. Temperance, when the world tells you to indulge. Justice, when it costs you something to do what's right. Wisdom, when the crowd wants noise, but your soul needs clarity. These are not outdated concepts. These are timeless tools. Tools for building a life of meaning, a life that doesn't depend on perfect conditions, but on practiced integrity. And that's what this ritual gives you. Not tricks. Not hacks. But a structure. A rhythm. A way to begin, each day, with your soul in alignment. Imagine this. You wake. You do not reach for distraction. You reach for silence. You sit. You do not ask what the world expects. You ask what kind of person you will be, even when the world gives you nothing. You breathe. You remind yourself that nothing outside can disturb your peace, unless you give it permission. You name your values. You write them down. You hold them close. You anticipate discomfort, insult, pain, not with fear, but with preparedness. You say thank you, not because everything is perfect, but because you are awake, alive, and capable of responding with strength. And then, you begin. Not rushed. Not reactive. But ready. A Stoic doesn't begin the day expecting comfort. A Stoic begins expecting a test, and welcomes it. Not because they enjoy hardship, but because they know, adversity reveals character. If someone insults you, good. You get to practice patience. If something goes wrong, good. You get to practice acceptance. If you fail, good. You get to practice humility. Everything is training. Everything is the path. Nothing is wasted. This is the mindset you take with you as you step into the day. Not entitlement. Not anxiety. But a quiet readiness. And even when the day gets loud, even when the pressure rises, even when you feel yourself being pulled, you return. To breath. To values. To virtue. Because this is not just a morning practice. It's a lifetime practice. One day at a time. One moment at a time. One decision at a time. And if you fall, you start again tomorrow. That's the beauty of mornings. They keep coming. They give you another chance. Not to be perfect. But to be present. To live, not as the world demands, but as your soul quietly calls you to live. That is the Stoic morning. Not a schedule. A stand. Not a ritual of efficiency. But a ritual of meaning. Not an escape from life. But the most powerful way to face it. And now the question becomes, will you begin tomorrow the same way, or will you begin like a Stoic?